Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. The Fat Lad Neil Pickup here with you in the mother fluffing house. And we are going deep inside with the man who is, I'm going to say, probably my favourite arm wrestler in the world. It's the Haleraiser, Geoff Hale. And I've personally been looking forward to this one. He's in the house. Geoff, how's it going, mate?
What's up, Nez? How's it going, bro?
I'm all right, brother. I am good. I'm sick of this coronavirus, though. It's absolutely, soul-destroying. It's soul-destroying.
Life is depressing right now. So I'm tired of it. I'm tired of being at home. I'm tired of being confined to quarters and stuff. I'm sick of it, dude.
Yeah, I mean, if somebody had told me at the end of February, you won't go out of your house again, really. And, I haven't been in a shop for what is it now? Coming up to 6 months.
Yeah.
It's nuts. And I'm not in prison. What's going on?
Yeah. And Megan and I, my wife and I, haven't been out to have dinner anywhere in 6 months or so. And that's always been kind of our getaway from the kids and work and stuff, is just to go out and have a date night. We haven't been able to do that in 6 months. And, man, it's been tough.
Yeah, and you've got a house full of little ones as well, haven't you? You've got the babies kicking around the place.
We've got a little puppy as well, so we've got our hands full at home.
But I did notice that you're out in the sporting environment. Your little lass getting a bit of a win on the BMX track.
Yeah, we were trying to find an activity that she could do during this pandemic that still allowed her to have some kind of social activity, some kind of competition if she wanted to, but not be touching the same things and up close and personal with other kids. And BMX happened to fit right in. And she, I introduced her to the movie Rad. Are you familiar with that movie?
I don't think so, mate. No, I don't recall it.
Yeah, it's a 1986 film. It's something I grew up watching as a kid.
Okay.
And it's about BMX racing. And so I introduced her to that during this pandemic, and she just fell in love with it. And so next thing we know, we're out at the track BMX racing. That's
how you roll, mate. I love it. BMX is such a great sport. My boys both BMX race, so yeah.
Yeah, they've done really well, haven't they? They've done
good. Yeah, they've been winning a lot. So yeah, they're very into the two-wheel sports, and who knows where it leads, mate. And that's precisely what we're going to find out today. Ladies and gents, for those of you who don't know Geoff, this guy is one of the most popular, one of the most polarising figures in arm wrestling history, I'm going to say. He's extensively experienced in supermatch arm wrestling. I'll give you a little bit of backstory. When I brought Geoff over to the Arm Wars Super Series and he developed the character, the Haleraiser, love him or hate him, one thing that was absolutely evident is that when the Haleraiser was on the stage, the ratings rocketed. That is a fact. People all over the world. We were going to 85 countries. The thing was being translated into more than 60 languages around the world. And there was a significant spike when the Hellraiser was in the house. So, yeah, he's been around, he's done it, he's pulled most people, and he's won a great deal while doing so. But I'm sure many of you are familiar with Geoff. For those who aren't, you're going to learn a great deal in the next couple of episodes that we do with this thing. And we want to take it way back. Geoff, if you've seen these before, mate, we want to start at the very beginning and sort of go into your history, mate. So, where was your start in sports, first of all, mate?
My first start in sports, it was probably baseball. I had a childhood friend growing up. His name was Taylor Fisher, and he kind of inspired me to get involved in the sport of baseball. And we were just playing, in the neighborhood. It started off and then next thing I know, I joined school ball. And then as I started to get older, I started to take it a little more serious. I went to a couple of baseball camps and stuff, and then started to really develop my skills and really focus in on baseball and baseball only. So I obviously played high school ball. I was one of the starters for the varsity team sophomore, junior, and senior year. I got an opportunity later in college to be involved with a Division II university called Rockhurst, okay. And I got to play some baseball there. And it ended shortly after that. And then I found arm wrestling. So it was kind of a very smooth transition from baseball to arm wrestling. And then I've been doing arm wrestling for almost 15 or 16 years now. So.
And how old were you at that point, mate? How old were you when you first came into arm wrestling?
So I just turned 21, I believe, and I just found a tournament outside of Kansas City, Missouri. It was the Kansas State. And I think it was in Bonner Springs. And that's where I saw Don Underwood for the first time and a couple other guys. And that's where I also met guys from Oklahoma and found out that that there's a team in Oklahoma, Jim Quill's team, that trained on a weekly basis. So at this point in time in my life, I was in the process of transferring back to Oklahoma State University. I had decided I wanted to major in geology, and Rockers didn't have that major available. So I was transferring back, and when I found out that there was a team in Oklahoma to train with, I was like, well, hell yeah, this is obviously meant to be because I'm going back to Oklahoma. So it worked out for the best.
When you first came across the sport of arm wrestling, mate, were you into strength generally? Because your baseball, not necessarily something that crosses over too well with strength. Very athleticism, yeah, but not so much strength sports. What were your background in strength sports? Had you had a keen interest in World's Strongest Man, in lifting, or were you in the gym regularly? What was sort of the basis there?
My basis for strength sport was really Taekwondo. I had martial background. I had done, I'm trying to think, Taekwondo for like 4 years maybe, and I think I got to like blue belt, red stripe, and then I got hit by a car when I was 8 years old. So, and that happened in the summer going into third grade, and I was in the hospital for a month in traction.
Wow.
I had a bullet to my chest for another month, and then cast for another month. So when I got out of all the casts, I went back to martial arts, and I actually transferred from the YMCA Taekwondo dojo that I was at, and I went over to Kong's, which is a very competitive dojo. And I found out real fast that I just didn't have the mentality to be a fighter. I enjoyed the idea of fighting. I was in love with Bruce Lee. I was in love with all his films. So I had a lot of inspiration there. And I liked martial arts, but I did not like getting hit in the face. And I didn't respond well to coaches who were just reaming me constantly. Now, these guys, I think they recognized that I had the athletic ability to be something great, even in martial arts, but they pushed me hard. But I just didn't respond well to that type of coaching. And so I shortly quit Taekwondo after that and focused solely on baseball. So,
and when you say you got hit by a car, mate, it sounds like you really got hit by a car.
Yeah, I broke my left femur, so I mean it smoked me.
Well, how did that come about? What were you doing? Were you running across the road? Or?
I was at a friend's house, and it was a hot summer day. We were bored. We were out in the front yard, and we were just kind of tossing this green hockey puck back and forth across the street. And I went over to pick it up to toss it back across, and I looked to my right, but I didn't look to my left. And I took about 3 steps into the road, and boom, I was hit.
Oh.
So it's just one of those things where it just kind of I wasn't following those lessons that your parents teach you to always look both ways. I looked one way and then thought I was good, So I don't know. It definitely changed. It was definitely a changing point in my life because obviously I was supposed to have Taekwondo at that point in time, and then for that my 9th birthday I was supposed to get my first dirt bike.
Okay.
And so that put on hold, obviously. So. I was big into motorcycles and racing in general, so I really wanted to do that at an early age, and I had to. That car accident kind of changed the direction of my life in a lot of ways. I think.
Did you still love your bikes now? Obviously,
I love bikes and stuff now, but obviously I'm too old to even think about getting competitive in anything like that. So it was a dream as a kid to be a BMX racer, to be a motocross racer, to be a flat track racer. I loved motorcycles and bicycles as a kid growing up. So I'm excited to see Wilhelmina take an interest in it.
So I want to get into this a little bit with the sort of martial arts and the mindset. Obviously, you spoke about not liking to get hit in the face, but loving the concept of the fight. Was that really the one-on-one competition that you lent towards, or that appealed to you? Did you like that? Did you like the technical aspect? What was your...
Yeah, I was a very competitive kid growing up. I can't say I was the most confident kid, but I definitely was very competitive. And that's one thing I've actually been thinking about lately is competition in the competitive mindset. I just got through watching The Last Dance, which is a Michael Jordan Bulls film or documentary on Netflix. and you get to kind of see the insider view of Michael Jordan and the kind of athlete he was and the kind of competitor he was and how hard he pushed all his teammates to rise to a higher level.
Yeah.
And I used to feel like I had that kind of competition inside of me. And it's funny that when I got involved in arm wrestling, I felt like I started to suppress that competitive nature. Because in arm wrestling, it's so egotistical, it's so ego-driven that it's really easy to push new people away from the sport. If they get beat too bad or they come in thinking that they're a hot shot and they get smoked by everybody on the team, they just disappear. And so I know that, to kind of tangent here, basically we just started taking it easy on the new guys. And I think it kind of suppressed our competitive nature on, at least for me personally, it did. And so, I don't know, watching that film with Michael Jordan, it really kind of inspired me to get mean again, to get, fired up and to get ready to kill. And so I was super excited about, this year's WL season, about potentially going to WAF again, and for it all to come crumbling down because of this virus, it just really, really sucks.
So your first arm wrestling experience was at Jim Coyle's club?
At Jim Coyle's, yeah. My very, very first memory of being, getting, arm wrestling somebody else was at baseball camp, actually, going into 7th grade. And I remember we had, it was in Chandler, Oklahoma, and we had all the kids were like divided up in these little cabins, basically. Mm-hmm. I think we had like 8 kids per cabin. And like the first day of baseball camp, the guys were like, "Hey, let's arm wrestle." So everybody got in a line. We all arm wrestled each other. Obviously, we had no idea what we were doing. I lost every match. I did not win one. And I thought, wow, like I know I'm strong. I know I'm explosive. I know I'm competitive at that point in time. But why can't I beat these guys? Yeah. I had no idea. But we came after baseball camp was over with. We came back, got home. One of my buddies that had gone with me one night was like, "Hey, let's arm wrestle again." I was like, "Man, okay, let's do this." We got on a bar stool. And I just thought to myself, I'm going to lock my entire body, and I'm going to use my speed and my natural explosiveness. I'm just going to hit straight sides as hard as I can. And I flash pin the guy. It's my first win, basically. Obviously unofficial, but first win in arm wrestling, arm wrestling a buddy. And so that right there, I felt a rush of adrenaline, just like, man, I like this. And I never really explored any more than that right there, than that experience until college, until I got out of baseball. But yeah, I loved arm wrestling. I loved baseball. I loved all those types of sports. Anything competitive as a kid, I was definitely into.
So what led you to that first event, mate? The first event that you saw advertised? Why did you go there? What was it?
I'm telling you, it's kind of stereotypical in that I had just kind of experienced my first taste of politics in sports. Obviously, in high school, I was a superior athlete to most of the guys on the team, with the exception of 4 or 5 guys, and so I had no problem earning my spot on the varsity team and starting there and being one of the top guys on the team.
Yeah.
When I got to college, it's a lot more competitive in college, even at the Division II level. And so I had to start from the bottom and work my way to the top. And so I was working really, really hard. I was putting a lot of effort into it. But there was a minor setback. I was, let's see, I'm trying to think. I was not starting on varsity for this Division II team. I was on the JV squad, basically. And I thought I should be on varsity. I thought I had proved myself in a number of different areas. Well, I was telling one of my teammates, man, I'm disappointed. Man, I'm pissed off. I said some bad things about the coach to my friend. I was just blowing off steam. I was just talking to one of my teammates, trying to, get through this hard time. Well, that teammate went back and told the coach everything I said. So the coach calls me into his office. He basically confronts me on all these things I said, and from right then and there, I was done. Like he was basically just said, "You're done. You're done for the season. You're not going to be playing." So I just thought, man, fuck baseball. That's what I thought. I mean, I had really poured my heart and soul into the sport, and I really had tried to make it to that next level, and I just felt like I had been suppressed by this teammate and by this coach. I just thought, fuck it, I'm done. So I was looking for something else to direct my athletic ability, my competitive nature towards, And I was just trying to think back, you know, in the past, what was I good at? What was I naturally really good at that I never really, you know, tried? And arm wrestling was that. So I started thinking about arm wrestling, and the next thing I know, Over the Top's on TV. I'm like, shit, Over the Top, man, this is awesome. I remember this movie when I was a kid. So I got online, I just Googled arm wrestling, and I found the Northeast message board, and I found a site that said there was a tournament that was going to be in Bonner Springs, Kansas, which is just outside of Kansas City, Missouri. So I was like, I'm going to go to this. I'm going to check it out. So I went to the tournament. I took third place in my first tournament, right-handed only, and met some guys from Oklahoma who said that Jim Coyle had a practice once a week. And so when I transferred back to Oklahoma State, I went out to Jim Coyle's house, and they put a whooping on me. But
yeah,
young enough and still really competitive that only inspired me and pushed me to want to be better.
Yep.
So I spent probably 4 years out at gyms learning how to arm wrestle. At that point in time, I was not training in the gym at all. I was just arm wrestling, you know. So it was just learning how to arm wrestle, learning the basic techniques. One of the guys that was out of Jim's house, Justin Joyce, who is now basically he's a good friend now and my primary training partner.
Yep.
We decided to kind of branch off from Jim Coyle's at a certain point and kind of start our own little group. We had just some different ideas. We had a different direction that we wanted to go with our training style. So we kind of just started our own little club, which is the Hellfire Arm Wrestling Club.
Now, you say you didn't have any gym training at that point in time, or you weren't training. Had you trained in the past? Had you got to the gym and were you a similar looking athlete to the one you are now? Because you're heavily muscled, Geoff. Yeah.
No, when I started high school, I was 5'3", 155 pounds. By senior year, I was 5'7", 176 pounds. And I didn't start working out in the gym until probably junior year is my guess. Yeah, you can have them. I probably didn't start working out in the gym until junior year because our coach pretty much put together a gym program for us during the off season. For those that were committed to baseball, they could go into the gym and work out. So I started working out junior year in high school, and I've always had good muscle definition, good muscle development. Yep. Even as a kid, even as a 10-year-old, I had a six pack abs. I mean, I've always just been a muscular guy. So developing the muscle, making them look pretty, I can do that no problem. But with arm wrestling, it's really more about that strength and developing your tendons and joints. And so it's a lot different than training for baseball.
Were you strong when you first went into the gym, mate? Did you have good power as well as the aesthetics?
Yes, yeah. I had good power, good athletic ability, so I could really learn the techniques pretty quickly. And I evolved pretty fast as a gym guy. I started getting in the gym, I think, 2008. My mom, for my birthday, got Megan and I a membership with a personal trainer here in town. His name is Mike Fraley, really, really good guy. And we spent probably 3 years training with him, and he really kind of developed the foundation for my gym training exercises and stuff. And then he brought me on as a part-time personal trainer, so I continued to learn from him and kind of get a much better understanding on how to train in the gym, how to get strong.
Mm-hmm. Now, you're obviously a very analytical guy. You're a very intelligent individual, and you the way that you compete is, I'm going to say, led by that. When watching you arm wrestle, one of the reasons you're my favourite arm wrestler is that, because you're not a guy who's got great levers at all, and yet you've got vast diversity. You really have. You've got obviously tools, the explosivity you've already spoken about, but for somebody who isn't gifted with natural leverage and maybe isn't the strongest person in the world, your ability to transition is very, very high. Your balls, you'll just have a go at something. You'll try. I've seen you go through the repertoire, mate, in matches and it's fine doing that when you're in a match where you're dominant, when you're in a match where you're winning easy. But I've seen you go to the well a great deal more when the match is going the other way. Case in point would have been the match with Joseph Levay, where you were literally going through the repertoire. Okay, what am I going to do to stop this dude? Now, when you first got into the sport of arm wrestling, did you find that you were sort of pigeonholed into a certain environment or a certain style of pulling? Because you've got quite short levers, you look heavily muscled, you look powerful? Were you sort of, right, this, you should hook, this is what you should do? And if you did you feel like that was your strength? Because I'm interested, because earlier on you said that when you first arm wrestled with your mate, with your friend, you just locked up your whole body and blew straight sideways through him. I'm keen to know sort of what was going through your own mind at that time and where people directed you. Did it sort of correlate to what your own thoughts and feelings were?
Yeah, I mean, I was obviously advised based off my structure, my genetics, that hooking was probably the best thing for me. And, like most armors, like most pullers that get in the sport, you want to have immediate success. So you look for your strengths and then you focus on those. I honestly think, looking back on it, it was probably a mistake to do that. But that's what I did. I focused on my hooking. I knew that if I took my hand and wrist out of the equation and just went arm to arm with guys, I was going to win those matches. And, I was only a year into the sport, and I went to a Nationals in 2006 in Denver, Colorado, and I did really well. I did not place top 4, but I did really well just with my arm strength, just with my explosiveness, without any kind of hand manipulation or really good technical ability. It was just whap, bam. I mean, I was really good at those specific, fundamentals of arm wrestling, or at least fundamentals of hooking. So I stuck with that for a long time because I was seeing a lot of success. But what I found out is that as you venture out more into the world and pull more guys start to really figure out what kind of puller you are. And that's, at that point in time, that's when you have to start really evolving. And I wish I would have evolved at the beginning instead of like in the middle and the end. But, I feel like I'm still evolving as an arm wrestler. I'm still trying to learn how to be more efficient at the table and not rely so much on my arm strength. But yeah, I mean, I think I recognized at an early start in arm wrestling that I was just explosive and strong. And I knew that if I could hit really hard against somebody and not have my hand exposed, I was probably going to flash that guy. Like I recognized that, but man, it took me a long time to commit to making my hand and wrist stronger. And honestly, now it's not a strength issue anymore. It's just a technical issue. It's just knowing how to use the hand correctly, knowing when to use it, knowing when to grip someone a certain way, whether it's high or low or whatever. So now it's back to just the fundamentals of arm wrestling for me. I mean, I feel like I know how to get strong. I have no problem getting strong now. I feel like I'm one of the strongest guys in the class, for sure, at WAL, maybe in the world. But so for me, at this point in time, it's all about arm wrestling.
Who was your early inspirations, Geoff?
Probably the first inspiration, Justin Joyce actually introduced me to this guy, was Bill Ballinger.
Okay, yeah.
And
old adversary of mine, Bill. Yeah.
Slap into he was just aggressive into the hook, and then he would plow someone straight sideways. And those were the kind of skills that I had starting off, and that I recognized were strong. So Bill was definitely an inspiration for my first hook. Yeah. Was definitely Bill Ballinger.
Such a powerful lad, Bill. Massive forearms as well. He looked the part, didn't he?
Yeah, looked
great
so
puller.
Cool. I always, I like muscles, so I definitely tend to be attracted to those kind of arm wrestlers that have the big muscles, like an Arson Liliev, like a Chad Silvers, Bill Ballinger back in the day. Guys that really had these, that looked awesome arm wrestling. I really was inspired by those kind of guys.
Interesting one that a lot of people overlook. The year that Andreas Rundstrom won the Yukon Jack 96?
Yes.
He took a loss to Bill Ballinger that day?
Really?
Yeah, he went on to the B-side. Bill put him on the B-side. Yeah, Bill was a bad man. He was serious. Obviously, former world champion himself. But yeah, I love Bill Ballinger. And his son, Scott's great. I mean, talk about a guy that flies under the radar. Scott Ballinger. I mean, you know him well from the Arm Wars days, but what a dude. What an hombre.
Real genuine guy. Super, super strong, just like his dad. The Ballinger families, they're all good people.
Now then, mate, we're going to move forward a little bit. Obviously, you make the move back to Oklahoma. You join Jim Coyle's club. You then break out with Justin and start your own thing. When did things start going really right for you, mate? When was your first significant victories in the sport? When did you first start to really ground yourself and land some significant successes?
I'd say 2009 Nationals in Arkansas. I took fourth place right-handed. I ended up losing to Ray Hendricks twice on fouls. Okay. And I really thought that day I could have taken first place. I had an opportunity to pull with Luke a little bit on the after table, who took second. And I had an opportunity to pull with Ron Kalimba, who took first. This is after table pulling, of course. But getting to fill those guys out, I felt like if I had an opportunity to pull those guys that day, I could have won. Mm-hmm. It was shortly after that I ended up going to, I think it was Oklahoma State tournament, where Corey Miller showed up. I got one win on Corey, and then he came back and beat me twice. So then and there, I was starting to kind of, make this slow rise.
Yep.
The next tournament I went to was Europa down in Dallas, where I ended up beating Luke for second place, but then again losing to Corey again. But, had some good matches there. Met John Brzezinski for the first time at that event. So I was slowly making some good gains. And then Arnold Classic came up shortly after that. I ended up not performing very well at Arnold's. I think I took like sixth or something like that, maybe right-handed, and I lost to Anthony Snook and Crazy George. So I lost to number 1 and number 2 in that tournament. So had I gotten maybe a different draw, maybe I could have placed top 3 or top 4. Yeah. I don't know. But that's where I kind of first. I think isn't that where we first met? Weren't you at
yes. Yes, I think at the Arnold. I think was the first time we'd ever spoken at all. And I was impressed by just your demeanour and you as a person, to be honest, mate. And the next time I sort of you came back on my radar, and it was quite sort of a slap awake, a nice little reminder. Sometimes you get a reminder on someone, and it's quite nice. And I was speaking to Michael Todd, and I just happened to mention you. And he said, "Oh, mate, yeah, he's going great guns. He's really doing well. He's thrashing people, entertaining, ripping up trees. You really need to take a good look at him." And I said at that time, "Yeah, familiar with Geoff. I haven't seen him pull in ages." And, I thought I'd get in touch and we'd see how things went. So I spoke to Mike, and off we go. Now, when did you sort of get that affinity with Michael Todd? Because a lot of people, you've obviously been close with Mike.
Yeah, Mike's a good friend of mine, and honestly, if it wasn't for him talking to you and kind of giving me some props, I may not have gotten the opportunity that I did with Arm Wars. So I have to give a lot of credit to Michael Todd for getting me into the spotlight, at least enough to prove myself, on that elite level. But Michael Todd was actually probably the second big name puller that I ever met, and my second tournament was in Arkansas, Little Rock. Mm-hmm. I went to a little tournament that he was putting on at one of the bars there in Little Rock, Arkansas, and I think I ended up taking second place there. Of course, I had arm wrestled. I did not know how to train for arm wrestling at this point in time, obviously. So my second tournament, I was training for arm wrestling like every day. And even the night before the tournament in the hotel, I had two of my friends with me and a table. We were arm wrestling the night before. We were just going at it.
Cobra Roll style.
Yeah. My kids and my daughter suffer the next day from training arm wrestling the day before. I had no clue about this stuff. So, but anyways, we met Michael Todd at that tournament. He invited us back to his house. So we were like, this is awesome. Okay. We went back to Michael's house, and he showed us all his equipment and kind of walked us through some of the exercises that he does. And the next thing you know, he's like, hey, Tanya, come in here. His wife at the time, ex-wife now, Tanya, came in, and he's like, he had me and my buddies trying to move this weight, and we couldn't hardly move it. He's like, hey, Tanya, come over here. Show him how to do this shit. And she just starts cranking out this weight. I'm going, holy crap. There's a lot more to this sport than I ever realized. I mean, this girl's making me look like a weakling. So, that was an inspirational moment right there, meeting Michael Todd, befriending him. Of course, Justin Joyce, he'd already known Michael for a long time prior to that. So, I got to know Michael better through Justin as well. So, yeah, but Michael and I became pretty good friends. So
talk to me about Justin Joyce, Geoff. Obviously, Justin's like your background guy, isn't he? He's the guy that's the underpin. Obviously, very important in your career.
Very important. Justin was probably the first guy that truly recognized that I had a lot of potential in this sport, and he was committed as a friend and as a teammate to help me.
Mm-hmm.
And when we were both trained at Jim Quarles' house, it was typically Justin and I who would get there. We were one of the first guys there and probably one of the last guys to leave. We were always training together, and we just had we had a good vibe. We communicated really well. We were competitive with one another, but it was never, we never got mad at one another. It never got heated. It was always like, I'm going to help you get better, and you're going to help me get better. And it was always very, mutual. And so, when we branched off, we were becoming good friends. We had recognized that we were really good training partners with one another, and we just had really good communication. And, Justin, to me, is probably one of the smartest arm wrestlers out there. He really understands the mechanics. He really understands, how to arm wrestle. And so he's inspired me a lot. He's probably been the biggest inspiration I've had in arm wrestling because he's helped me the most. He really helped me develop the fundamentals of arm wrestling. And then I would always ask lots of questions. I was always a good, question asker as a kid, and, as an adult, trying to help people find the answer. I always had good questions. So together, Justin and I could put our heads together and really come up with nice, really, really good game plans for guys, for super matches especially.
Yeah.
But, Justin helped me with on how to watch videos, on how to study guys, what things to look for when I'm watching a video. And he's really been my foundation for all arm wrestling related stuff. And without him, it would have been a pretty long road to the top. With him, he helped me get there fast.
Was he very much responsible then for imparting technical knowledge and skill into you? Did he have sort of a broader or more expansive knowledge of the technique when you came into the sport? Had he been practicing longer? Definitely.
Yeah, I think he started in 2002. So he had several years before I got into the sport. And he is someone that, like a lot of good arm wrestlers, you obsess about things that you're in love with. And I think one of his first obsessions was boxing. And when I listen to him talk about a boxing match, it is, first of all, it's super entertaining because he sees a lot of things that are going on in these matches that you just don't see as just a general audience member. He was able to break down arm wrestling just like he could break down boxing. And so he could always explain things to me in layman's terms, and it could always help me find a way to understand it, help me understand it at least, maybe not someone else, but I could always understand what he was saying. And so, like I said, we just had a really good, we really could communicate well with one another. So, like I said, I have to give a lot of props to Justin Joyce. He really helped me with my fundamentals. He still helps me today. We talk almost every day on the phone, and it's much about arm wrestling.
And you got a reasonable club going down there, didn't you? You guys managed to build up quite a stable. You had some. It was small but solid.
It was small and solid. We had some really good guys on the team. Annie Fuller, who I know you're familiar with.
Love Annie. She's
has been with us from the very beginning and is still with us today. She's gone all around the world competing at very high levels. She's an excellent arm wrestler. For a period of time, we had Sophie Oppenheimer, who at one point in time was ranked number 1 in North America at the lightweight division for women. And she's been around the world and competed and done very, very well. So we've had some really good guys on the team over the years. And, I would not be where I'm at today without those teammates, for sure.
So once you'd got to sort of that competitive level, mate, you'd got to the level where you were banging away with the Luke Kents, the Corey Millers, what was sort of your aspirations at that time in terms of doing things differently? I know that you always get pigeonholed right now into the supermatch dude. And it's almost like, bear with me, it's almost like you don't kick against it, but you're one of the guys that I would say from all the arm wrestlers I've ever met who you never stop seeking that next horizon challenge. You have to have something on your horizon that you're focused on, and that's when you seem to be at your best. What was sort of at that time in your career, what was your priority list? Was it WAF Worlds then? Was it Nationals then? What would you think?
At that point in time, it was definitely nationals. I wanted to win a national title, and then I wanted to go off and win WAF as well. But
did you sort of put it on title, or did you include athletes in there? Did you have sort of a lot of people talk about that like hit list, you know? This is step number 1, this dude, and then there's another guy. Did that ever come into your mind, or were you not really focused on individuals? It was just whoever I got to go over to get to that, I'm going for that title.
It wasn't quite individuals at that time because I just wasn't quite confident to think that I could go face a Cobra Rhodes or a Chad Silvers at 176 or the top guys at the time in USA. I was just focusing on getting some titles and, you know, building up that foundation of, you know, hey, I'm actually a good arm wrestler and I'm one of the top guys. It really wasn't until the Arm Wars experience that I went full on super match and then became a full on hit list kind of guy. Before that, it was definitely, you know, I just wanted to get some state titles, some national titles, some international titles, and kind of build that up before I started focusing on one guy at a time.
And how familiar were you with the international scene, mate, in terms of World Arm Wrestling Federation, the champions there? Were you mostly centered around North America at that time, or had your sort of vision gone further than that?
Yeah, I think I was mostly centered on North America because I just knew I wasn't quite at a level to be looking past that. Mm-hmm. I wanted to focus on what was going on here and who I knew I was going to be facing here, and conquer and climb that mountain first before I tried to climb the world mountain. You know, that idea and that game plan did not come to fruition. I ended up, you know, getting picked up by Arm Wars, and things changed very rapidly. So I honestly think that Arm Wars is what pushed me to the next level. I think it's that opportunity that inspired me to become an elite athlete. I think prior to that, I just still wasn't 100% committed to being a arm wrestler. My gym stuff wasn't quite, I was doing gym work at that time, but I just wasn't committed. I wasn't totally all in yet.
So let's talk Arm Wars then, mate. How did that sort of come about for you from your side? Walk me through that little story.
Honestly, I mean, if I remember correctly, Michael Todd's the one that introduced me to it. And I remember watching the Michael Todd Marcio Barbosa match.
The Lakeside, yeah.
And even to this day, it's probably my favorite match of all time.
Hell of a match, man.
I watch it. I'm just entertained. It was an explosive match. It was a fierce match. Yeah. And Michael was in all kinds of just crazy positions. And Marcio, most of the time, was in great position, hitting hard, hitting explosively, being very aggressive. Oh, man, it was a sick match. And that really, I used that match. I remember when I flew over to Manchester for my first Arm Wars, I had that match on my phone. And I was watching that match the entire time, just getting pumped up and excited about being a part of Arm Wars, being a part of this international stage where I get to go out there and have basically be free on the stage and do what I want to do. It was awesome. It was very inspirational.
Now, a little bit of backstory there on that match, you know, the Mike Todd Marcio match. That was the famous Deep Water event where John Brzezinski and Devon Larratt met for the first time in Supermatch. So they were the main event. They were going last up. And the two matches prior to their match, first it was a guy called Stuart Hall. You probably know Stuart from the UK. Yeah. And he pulled Peter Scherber, who again you'll know from Poland. And they had an absolutely unbelievable match. You can see these on armwars.com. It's an incredible battle. The next match after that was Michael and Marcio. Same situation. Ridiculous match. And I've got Devon and Mike sat on the side, and they're watching. When Michael was watching Peter Scherber and Stuart Hall, he's like, God, damn, we've got to go after this. We're supposed to be the big dumb matches. There's no way we can do as well as this. So he goes up and puts on an incredible performance. At that time, John Brzezinski's come over. He sat beside me and he's going, oh, Jesus, I don't care what we do. It's going to be a flop compared with this. It was just piss funny. We were looking at, I mean, obviously it went on and Devon and John's match created headlines all over the world for very different reasons. The one-sided nature of that match was probably as remarkable in a different way. But that card, the Deepwater card, was phenomenal, mate. There were some absolute screamers on there. Now, you came over to Manchester to the signature event at the Trafford Centre. How was that for you?
Oh, man, it was amazing. I think for most people it would have been very intimidating because it's a very large, area that we were competing in with a very large crowd, and the camera's up in your grill. You're coming down these stairs. It was nuts. But for me, I got into character immediately, and I just fed off of the energy from the people there, and from the fact that I was on the spotlight was on me. And so for me, it was awesome. I just knew from that point on I wanted to keep on doing this. I didn't want to go back to tournaments. I wanted to keep on doing arm wars.
It was like it was your home, wasn't it? It was like it was meant to be. I remember seeing you come down that staircase for the first time, and I was thinking to myself, "Holy, this guy loves it." You just went, like you said, bang, hit your groove straight off them. Who was your first match? Was it Scarsbrook or was it Freddie Gunnar?
Yeah.
Dean, wasn't it? Dean Scott, who's a rock. Strong as hell.
Dude, that guy's hook is insane. That was another thing. I learned a lesson at that tournament or that event is that you cannot look at somebody and say, they don't look like an arm wrestler. They don't have huge arms. They're not going to beat me. Arm wrestling is so deceiving when you look at athletes. You just can't judge a book by its cover in this sport, or you're going to get beat hard. And I'll tell you right now, Dean Scarsbrook has got one of the nastiest hooks I've ever had to pull against. I could not believe it. I couldn't believe it. I was genuinely impressed by Dean's power inside. It was crazy.
And you went into that match as the underdog.
I did.
You were the new kid on the block. Dean was. You really were. And you didn't read that script, though, did you? How confident were you, mate, when you were coming down? Because you didn't look shy, No, whenever I could get into character and let the character take over, Geoff Hale disappeared. Because the Geoff Hale that the everyday Geoff Hale at that point in time was really not that confident. But the Hellraiser was immensely confident and arrogant and evil and everything I guess that I subconsciously thought I needed to be in order to walk out on that stage and already know I'm the champ. That's what the Hellraiser did for me. It really gave me another level of confidence and intimidation on the stage that, it was a weapon. I didn't have to rely solely on my skills. I had that Hellraiser character that really, and I think maybe the Europeans at that time just weren't used to some crazy American guy coming in there and saying and acting nuts. I don't know if that just threw people off their game, but it seemed to help me. It seemed to help me personally. So let's get into this a little bit, mate. The Hellraiser. Where did he come from? Because so many people think you just created that for the cameras. That's not the case, is it really? It wasn't for the cameras so much.
Yeah, no, the Hellraiser was always someone who was inside of me that was trying to get out. And really the first moment, I never had a name for it, though. There was something inside me that wanted to get out, that wanted to be aggressive, that wanted to be the best, that wanted to be a badass, that wanted to scare people and intimidate, let everybody know that I'm the man on the block kind of guy, but I never had the confidence to get him out. And I didn't have a name for him. I didn't know how to express that. And I think I was 10 years old, and I was at a family function in Duncan, Oklahoma, which is where my dad's from. And this little old lady came up to me, and she said, "Are you Ross Hale's son?" And I said, "Yes, ma'am." She goes, "Your daddy was a little Hellraiser growing up." And Hellraiser, it just stuck with me because I just was like, I always wanted to be like my dad. And I'd heard stories about my dad being, he was a wrestler in high school and a year in college. Mm-hmm. And, back in the 60s and 70s, times were harder. Especially in small towns. People didn't put up with a lot of shit. if you smarted off someone, you got your ass whooped. I mean, people were tough, and my dad was one of those guys. He was a tough guy. And I got to hear lots of cool stories about him, getting into maybe some fights here and there or getting rowdy with guys and stuff. And I always wanted to be that badass. I wanted the killer instinct. My dad had it. I didn't. And so when that woman had, told me my dad was a little Hellraiser, I was like, that's what I'm going to call this. That's what it's inside of me. It's the little Hellraiser. It's the Hellraiser that my dad was. And so, fast forward another 11, 12, 13 years, finally I have an opportunity to bring this part of myself out into the world. Neil Pickup said I have the green light to be whoever the fuck I want to be up there. So I'm going to be the Hellraiser, and I'm going to unleash hell on all my competition. And holy shit, it was fun. And,
yeah, it was. Oh, mate.
It was awesome. It really made arm wrestling a lot more fun.
And the Hellraiser evolved, didn't he? It was like you evolved from that first sort of tiptoey entrance into him there. He got to the stage where, there was banners at the Trafford Centre, people coming, who were watching the show. I remember when you were throwing down evil knighthoods on people, putting horns on them. Oh, mate, that was ace. But, and a lot of that's cut from the show. You don't see that in the show, but at the live events, we had so much fun with that. It was fantastic. Absolutely. What was your sort of favourite moments of the Hellraiser? Did you like it back in the early days, or did it, because it seemed organic early on, it just came, and then later on you were putting time into you were thinking of angles and hooks and things like that, but you weren't early on, were you? It was just...
No, it was 100% improv early on, but I also remember feeling pretty nervous, especially when I wasn't on stage. It was typically in the post-interviews or the pre-interviews that I felt the most nervous, because then I was Geoff Hale again. And then I was trying to explain to you or whoever else I was talking to, what kind of arm wrestler I was. And really it needed to be the Hellraiser explaining these things, because the Hellraiser would have gotten it all out on, and, it would have been a lot more, it would have been a more clear understanding had he been the one explaining these things. But as time went on, I was able to stay in character longer. I was able to make it, to me, it felt more natural just to be the character all the time during those interviews, post and pre-match interviews, and then during the match. And yes, I was working on my craft. I was trying to mold it a little bit. I was trying to make the Hellraiser not only evil, kind of how you started off pretty much evil, but I wanted to make him a little bit more funny. I wanted to have a little more fun with it, And by 2014, I felt like I was doing that. I felt like I was legitimately talking shit up on the table and in between matches really, really naturally. So I felt like I liked the direction that the Hellraiser was going towards the end of my Arm Wars career. When I brought it back to the WAL, it wasn't quite what I wanted it to be. I think I had a lot of anger, number one. So there was more anger behind it. There was more frustration behind the character. There was more anxiety behind the character, because I was trying to rush myself back to a high level after taking a 2-year hiatus from the elite competition. So, it just, the character has definitely evolved and changed and gone all different directions over the years.
Ladies and gents, we are 48 minutes in, and that concludes this first part of Deep Inside with the Haleraiser, Geoff Hale. But don't worry, it is not done yet. This isn't a one-hit deal. Myself and Geoff are going to be back on here for part number 2 very soon. If this is your first time on Supernatural Strength, please make sure you like, share, subscribe, let everybody know about it. Crazy times out there, ladies and gents, but make sure you tune in for the next one of these. I want to say a massive thank you to Geoff Hale for joining me, mate. Thanks for giving up your time for this one.
Hell yeah, man.
And to all you guys out there, take it easy, peeps.